I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery. And my road to recovery began with Pinnacle Recovery Center. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did and give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Today's show is going to be a great show. We got Christian Smith from Cycles of Change here to share his story and what he's doing now. And, of course, we always check in with Dr. Matt, the puppy owner.
Yeah, I'm down to one puppy.
And you're keeping it.
And we're keeping it. The kids talked me into keeping it. So
how many dogs is that now?
3.
All right.
Yeah. They're great. They're great dogs. But, I mean, when you have dogs, it's like having little kids.
My dad taught me this.
So if you go out of town, somebody has to watch them, and you have to feed them every day.
Yeah. But my dad taught me this at a young age. If you have more dogs than ex-wives, you're doing okay.
Okay. Good. I do. It's a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, so that's right now on the Michael Scott scale, you're doing well.
Hey, the Michael Scott's he's a wise man.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Hey, so I've been thinking about something when I go to the gym. 3,627.
That's what you've been thinking about?
No, that's how many times I have to blow to get my car started.
Oh.
3,627.
Yeah, right.
But when I go down to blow every morning in Ogden for the 24/7 program, I've been going to the gym. And when I go to the gym, that's where I get inside my head.
Uh-huh.
And so I've been working on this, and I'm just going to try it out with you right now.
Okay.
But recovery is kind of like buying a car. Okay, now follow me on this. We're talking about the destination is Sobertown, okay? We all want to get to Sobertown.
Okay.
And when you're going to Sobertown, everybody would like to fly into Sobertown or roll into Sobertown in a Lexus or a Tesla. A limo. Everybody wants the easy way into Sobertown.
Right.
So a lot of times when I'm out there and I'm talking about recovery, because I live in a recovery world, we do this podcast, I work at Pinnacle Recovery, I'm out doing speaking engagements,
right.
And a lot of times people will come up to me and go, I want what you have. And I want them to.
The sobriety.
Yeah, the sobriety.
Yeah.
And they also kind of want the way I did it. Like they want to go to a nice recovery facility or they want the certain things that I had that I was fortunate enough to get. Mm-hmm. But I have to stop and talk to them and say, listen, you're focusing too much on the car and not the destination.
Right.
Because I want you to have, and I think you should have what I got. But the reality is not everybody's going to get what I had and what I've got. But you can get to the destination.
If there's lots of different, what's the old saying? All roads lead to Rome.
Yeah. You can walk to Sobertown. You can take a bus to Sobertown.
I'd skateboard.
You could skateboard to Sobertown. But what I'm saying and what I'm trying to get at is that don't look for a reason not to get to Sobertown.
Just because the vehicle isn't sexy enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's some great programs out there that are old beater cars, but they're still going to get
They're working. They're doing the job.
Where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, last week we spent a whole an hour talking about the 12 steps, and that's an old tried and true method, and if you put it to the test, it's probably going to work for you.
It's an old Ford F-150, and it does the job. And for some, it will get you where you need to go. Yeah. So I don't like it when people get too hung up on their mode of transportation to Sobertown.
Well, don't you think, though, that's because sometimes people think that the newest and the latest and the sexiest whatever is like going to be better?
Yeah.
Right? Like we do that. We do that with cars. We do that with almost anything, electronics, if it's new and sexy and cool. But it's funny you brought that up. My vehicle, 4Runner, broke down. I had an electrical problem. It's not a very old car. It's pretty new and has all the nice bells and whistles, and I love it. But it broke down, and so this last week, while we were waiting for a part to come in on that, I was driving my old car, which was now like onto kid number 3, an old 2000 Acura TL. And this car has almost 200,000 miles on it. You know, the leather's all worn through, but that sucker starts up every time. It's a nice ride. It gets you where you need to go. And I was driving that thinking, man, I'm grateful to have this car. It
did the job.
On the outside, you know, it's got dents and scratches and rust and, you know, paint's peeling off.
I call that character.
Yeah, it's got, oh man, I've had 3 teenage boys drive it. But it starts up every single time and gets me where I need to go. And I agree with you. You know, when it comes to sobriety, the key, I think, is if a person really wants it. Like, you know, we've talked about that. Almost everybody has had to get to a point where it's like, this is what I want more than anything. And
I don't
at
care
that
how.
point, they'll walk to Sober Town if they have to.
I don't care how I get there. I am going there.
Yeah.
So don't get hung up on the mode of transportation to get you there. Mm-hmm. Just find something that's going to get you there.
Right, because the destination's what's important. So I'm liking your analogy. I'm going to give it like a B, a B plus.
I was a B student.
Yeah, there you go. That's all. And a B gets you into college, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right on.
What was that? A's get PhDs, B's get, I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that B students make the most money in life.
Do they really?
Yeah, that's true. The A students are all up there wearing white lab coats making $40,000 a year. But it's the B students who are creative and know how to work with people that make the money.
Christian, what student were you? A, B,
well,
or
it wasn't
C?
an A. So somewhere between a C and a B.
See, he's making all the money.
Yeah, Christian Smith is our guest today for Cycles of Change, and he's going to share his story with us. But you've got a pretty fascinating story. I was checking out your bio, a graduate of University of Utah, a grandpa. You've seen 1,000 faces, and you've rocked them all.
Yeah, I've rocked a lot.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. Give us a little information about you.
Born and raised, I'm 59 years old.
59.
In my 60th year. Born and raised in this community. Went to Cottonwood High School. 8 siblings. And we were middle class. Didn't have a lot. Didn't go without a bunch. But life was pretty easy. I didn't have any trauma growing up, other than the trauma of being a middle kid and a bunch of siblings and having to fight for everything I got from my siblings.
Bathroom time.
Yeah, bathroom time. Sport time. Had to prove I was the best athlete. Scott, Thad. And so I get active in the LDS Church. Dad was either a bishop, stake president, mission president most of my life growing up. And,
so you had keys to the church.
Had keys to the church.
That was always the selling point.
You always made friends with that kid,
yeah,
right?
because he had keys to the church.
You go play some basketball in January. When
That's
it's
right.
cold out.
Yeah. So I didn't have any trauma growing up. It was really a pretty simple life growing up. We were active outdoors, played a lot of sport, played basketball, pretty good golfer, and hunted. We hunted a lot back then. Get into one of the things that I remember, and Matt, with your expertise, one day you ought to pull me aside and help me understand if this has any significance. One memory I have looking back is that I think I failed kindergarten. Well, I flunked, whatever you want to call it. I repeated kindergarten. What I found out recently was that when your birthday's late in the season, school season, I'm an August birthday, it's common now for somebody to go, hey, why don't we hold them back or whatever. But I remember looking back, that affected me.
My ex-brother-in-law, Jordan, did kindergarten twice. We were at a family party, and we were all talking, and he goes, hey, do you guys remember your second year of kindergarten? And everybody just got quiet. Everybody got quiet.
He was serious?
Yeah, he was serious. And everybody's like, we just told you that because you had to do it twice. Yeah.
And that's where I'm thinking, what do I miss up on
did it
that?
kind of make you feel self-conscious?
A little self-conscious,
not
yeah.
maybe as smart as the other kids and stuff? Yeah.
How do you feel kindergarten? What do you not take naps well? You don't share your milk? I mean, so anyway, it would come back to be a positive years down the road when I'm now
a year older, a little bit bigger than everybody else.
And I'm the first guy to get a driver's license in high school.
Yeah.
Walking in with my driver's license as a freshman at Cottonwood High School, I had a lot of friends.
Yeah.
And didn't experiment with any substance abuse at all. As a kid, I remember smoking the butt end of a cigarette. I would learn years later it truly was the butt end because nothing happened.
Okay.
And I sampled a little bit of clear alcohol, which was probably vodka, could have been gin, but probably vodka, and it was foul. I didn't like it. Other than that, the only problem I struggled with growing up as a teenager was I had, is this a disease, Matt, called horniness?
I think that's called being a teenager. Probably.
Yeah.
So I always had a girlfriend and pushing that envelope. You know?
Yeah.
And first base is good. Second base should be really good. Then why not a home run? You know, what's the problem with that? So I'm pushing that. But I finished high school. Like you said earlier, I was a B- student. I didn't spend a lot of time there in high school. And what's the natural thing for a Mormon kid to do at that age?
Go on a mission.
So that's a good idea. My mom and dad thought that'd be a good idea. I love them. Let's go. So I was called to serve in South Africa and had a wonderful experience. Probably the worst place in the world for a guy like me to go. It was during apartheid. So what that means is I never made a bed. I never fixed any food. I never cleaned up anything or ironed any clothes or did any laundry.
You had housekeepers.
We had servants to do that, yeah. So I didn't learn, I say that because looking back, I missed out on adulting a little bit, on the transition from adolescence to adult. So I come home from that mission. It was a great experience. Finished it, completed it, was great. I still am horny. Can I say that on this?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're going to edit this anyways. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I think just because you're 59 doesn't mean that you can't be horny. Is that right?
I don't know. How old are you?
48. I'm still horny. I mean, not as often as I used to be.
Yeah.
At least on the weekend.
So you come back, and so do you...
Still horny? The remedy for a return missionary who has that?
You got to get married.
Bam. 7 days after I'm home, I'm engaged to be
Shut
married.
up.
No,
7
true story.
days?
True story.
Now,
Is
did
that
you
the
know this-
fastest you've ever heard of?
Yeah. Did
That's
you know the girl
fastest.
before
I
you
keep
left?
track
I
of
did.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the fastest.
It was just, we kind of thought, the arrangement was we were writing each other, but she was dating, you schmuck, Kelly. But she was dating while I was gone. Come home. She's blonde, beautiful, and I'm horny and married.
There you go.
So how long? You got engaged in 7 days. How long before you were married?
That was September, married February.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty fast.
Life's going good, and here's where we get married, and here's where my life starts to take a twist. Kelly, well, let me back up. I grew up in a family where the way we communicated was very, very passive. On occasion, rare occasion, passive-aggressive, but rarely assertive. And the only time it was okay to be assertive or even aggressive was if we're playing sport. You know, then I could get in somebody's grill and get kicked out of a game or something, and my dad's going, "That's my boy." But within the dynamics of the family, we didn't raise our voice. To this day, I've never heard my father raise his voice to my mother or vice versa.
Wow.
Just wasn't our style of communication. I marry a gal whose family style of communication is extremely assertive. I actually called it yelling. and if they hear this, we've gone through this enough, you know you don't have to take offense anymore. Because looking back, that style of communication is actually much more effective and healthy than the style I was raised up in. So Kelly and I marry. I do something silly. It's my style, my nature. I'm kind of I'm weird.
Oh, I think we're cut from the same cloth.
Okay. And Kelly communicates, when she sees me do something out there, she communicates like she was brought up to communicate. I interpret that as yelling. And I remember having this feeling like I wanted to crawl under the table and hide.
Why is she yelling at me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this just was killing me. In the sports court, I don't care how big you are. Let's go. And then when it's all over, we'll shake hands and hug and kumbaya. But in this one-on-one communication deal, I didn't know how to take that. 3 years after we're married, on a spring morning, I'm riding to work on a motorcycle and I'm in a motorcycle accident. And most of you that know
I have a motorcycle.
addiction also know the rest of the
Thought
story.
we were talking about bikes.
No.
Yeah.
Dang
No.
it.
So I end up at the hospital, ambulance to the hospital, broken bones, road rash all over, up and down. And
How old are you at this age?
25-ish. And they sent me home with a bottle of pain medicine, and it was Percodan. And I remember on the bottle, it was a big bottle. It was probably 6 inches high, and it was loaded. And
Chock full.
Chock full.
And this would have been mid to late 80s, maybe?
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been. I got home in 81. Yeah, that would have been 88, 87, something like that.
Way before the awareness of
Absolutely. Yeah.
opiates.
And Kelly worked, she worked in the medical field, still does. She works for Intermountain Healthcare. And she worked at Cottonwood Hospital. And that comes into play in just a minute. So they sent me home with this bottle of pill. It says take 1 or 2 as needed for pain. That would work. But somehow, I don't recall the specifics, but somehow my brain learned if you took 1 or 2, the road rash didn't hurt, the broken leg, that didn't hurt. But if you took 3 or 4, Kelly could come at me all she wanted, and that didn't hurt anymore. And so I began, not consciously aware of it, but I'm self-medicating not only physical pain, but some of this
emotional
stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And so I would heal from that. A motorcycle accident, the pain pills went away, I'm okay. But you can't play Mormon basketball without finding yourself in the emergency room.
Church ball is dangerous.
It really is. Yeah.
And each time, because
let's just set the record straight. Because everybody's really nice to each other all week long, and then it's game time. That's your one chance, right?
To get the aggression out.
Yeah, get your aggression out, and it gets crazy.
And there's a lot of scouts from the NBA in those stands, on that stage. There's a lot of talent that's being uncovered in church.
You must have gone to different churches. I don't know.
That goes back to my sarcastic roots. So.
No, I love it.
Okay.
So you find yourself in church ball,
going back to the ER, busted up ankles or whatever. Each time I went to the ER, which is where my wife worked, and they love Kelly at the hospital, they would ask me, hey, what do you need for pain? And I remember deliberately mispronouncing, for example, because I didn't want them to get on to me, right?
Do you have any of that Percoderol?
It was actually Loratab. I know it's pronounced. I know it's Lortab, but yeah. Loratab. Okay, Loratab. They would say. Yeah, I'd say great. What do you take? 75s, something, 75. I know it's 7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want the 5.0s.
But you're playing the game so that they think you're naive.
Yeah. And so I'm not pill shopping. Yeah. So each time they would give it to me. And over from that first motorcycle accident, probably somewhere between 5 and 8 years, the window between me using shortened to where I was using all the time because I didn't want to go through withdrawals. I didn't like that. If nobody's ever gone through withdrawals, for me, the best way to describe it was you take the worst flu you've ever had and you times it by 10, and you might be in the ballpark. Feelings of wanting to crawl out of my skin, rage, just unbelievable discomfort, unexplainable.
I've heard people say, I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid of withdrawals.
Withdrawals, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had that feeling. I wanted to die. I knew I wasn't going to die, but I felt like I wanted to die. It would be easier than going through that. So, and this was before Subutex or Suboxone ever came on the scene. So now I'm into this thing somewhere between 5 and 8 years. I'm using 24/7. I've completed college. I was slow completing that because we had kids. I'm working. You went to golf and going to school full time and raising kids. And so college was a little longer than most. I mean, my favorite line from, I think it's Dumb and Dumber is, a lot of guys go to college for 7 years.
They're called doctors.
So I finished college. I'm golfing with a group of guys, and I know one of them that's golfing owns a medical device company. And so I wanted deliberately to market myself. And on the last hole, he says, I say, what do you do for work? I knew what he did for work. And anyway, we talked for a minute, and he said, well, hey, why don't you come and talk to me? I started working. This would have been early 90s, maybe still late 80s. So I started in the medical device arena and loved it. And worked my way up to representing ultimately at the peak mechanical heart valves, aortic and mitral heart valves, and cardiovascular grafts. So I'm calling on thoracic and cardiovascular surgeons for the most part, and had a wonderful experience. And we were financially doing really well. At the peak, I was making...
you guys make more money than most of the doctors selling that
We
stuff.
were doing really well. At the peak, I was making $50,000 a month.
You're listening to Christian Smith here on Project Recovery. We're finding out a little bit more about his story, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
A gun in the face.
Then all of a sudden, they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
Started 2 years of horror for an American in Venezuela.
They said, you need to give us your phone and get ready because you're coming with us.
I'm Becky Bruce, and I spent a year researching and piecing together Josh and Tammy Holt's story about their ordeal in a notorious prison.
That's when everything started to turn bad. We had another pound on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And there was the police once again.
You can binge all of the episodes of Hope in Darkness on kslpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
So, killing it in the industry.
Okay. The problem is I'm also one particular doctor, and I know the statute of limitations is up, and I've made my amends over the years, but one particular doctor that I'd call, and he had that was back in the day when they were given sample pain meds.
Oh, yeah.
And they were blister packs. And I would go in, and he and I became really good friends, and I would go into the office, and Nurse Sally, I'd say, I'm here to see the doc, and doc say, yeah, or the nurse would say, he's busy with patients still. Why don't you just go in his office? Okay. Knowing I was going to ransack where he kept those pills. So I'm breaking the law now. I'm lying to my wife of worse, because prescriptions that were given to me, at this point I have a bad back. I left out, I may or may not have been a cheerleader my senior year at high school.
Yeah, you did leave that out.
You left that
I
out.
left
I think
that
we
out.
would have remembered.
So I was playing basketball, but at Cottonwood, in between my junior and senior year, they got a new coach. And the new coach had said, hey, you're going to make the team, but you are not going to play, to a couple of us. I'm going to go in a different direction. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to bust my butt running wind sprints and ladders not to play. So somebody said to me, hey, we got a couple guys we're going to try out for cheerleader. I said, well, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. It was fun. Had a blast. But during that time, and I'm not a gymnast, but we were lifting and all that stuff. It appears, looking back, that I broke my L5, fractured my L5-S1. And over the years, that became more and more prevalent and symptomatic and through pain and nerve pain radiating down my left leg. Going to see the docs, this was magical for a guy like me. Fast forward those 8 years, because I could go into any ER and say, hey, I fell off my horse, didn't own a horse, and my back hurts, knowing they were going to take an x-ray, and they would come back and go, oh, dude, you got a major bad back. You need to see a specialist. What do you take for pain? And again, Fein, whatever drug I could come up with. And about this time, I'm thinking this is probably mid-90s, Oxycontin comes on the scene. And so I end up going to see. I'm still working. I'm still functioning high, making all my appointments, performing well. Go to see a pain management clinic, and that was magical for a pain guy because they were giving me Oxycontin for the chronic pain and then other meds for breakthrough pain. I mean, this was heaven. This were nirvana.
Kid in a candy store.
Yeah. And I thought, well, that's a good deal. But that still wouldn't last 30 days. So I signed up for a second pain clinic, the University of Utah. So now I got 2 pain clinics going. This before DOPA was prevalent.
Where they could track all that. Yeah.
They could, but they had to do some digging to do it. Now I understand.
You kind of had to get red flagged back in the day for them to start tracking you.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm actually to that point. At some point in the late 90s now, I am red flagged. I walk into the pain clinic and get back to the room, and the nurse lady says, hey, we see you've been doctor shopping, and you need to sit here. The doctor will be in just a minute. Of course, I'm panicked, and so I wait there for a second, and then quickly poked my head out the door and said to the nurse, "Hey, where's the men's restroom?" She points. I knew where it was. She points. She points to it. I'll be right back. I went right past that restroom and right out the front door, never to go back, and waited for the knock on the door from the police, which never came. Unfortunately, looking back, those knocks never came. So let's see. At this point, I'm still active in the LDS Church. I'm still active, physically active. I'm attending meetings. I'm the executive secretary for the stake president, wanting those meetings to end that go late because the guy that was still buying my extras off the street, his door would close at 9, and so I would exit meetings before give some story. And I'm the kind of guy that was I was paying $1 a milligram for oxys back in the day, and apparently people made fun of people like me. And that's expensive. I bring that up because now I'm starting to go through a lot of money, making money. But Kelly, my wife, is seeing there's a lot of money.
So it's $80 a pill.
$80 a pill, and that's only a starting point, right? For a guy like me taking this with my tolerance as big as it was, anything less than 80 is not worth doing, because 80 is just barely making me well, and I want to be more than well. So, I'm taking 400 milligrams at a pop, 3, 4, 5 times a day, and functioning. In 2001, so I'm still on pain pills. Let me back up a tiny bit. Early on in the training, I go to Kansas, my first experience with alcohol. Early on in the training, which would have been mid-'80s, Kansas City, Kansas, I'm asked to go to some training. I go there. The first night we sit down as a group of people that are being trained and announce who you are and where you're from. I'm Christian. I'm from Salt Lake City. We go to dinner after that, and at dinner they said, "Hey, Smith, you're from Salt Lake. Are you a Mormon?" And I remember saying, "Yes, I am a Mormon," but quickly added, "I'm not a very good one," which speaks to my desire to be liked by everybody.
Right. I get that.
That's a weakness that I got. I didn't want y'all to judge me. So, yeah, I'm LDS, so I can own my own value. That's good. But I'm not really active.
I'm still a fun guy.
Yeah, that's kind of where I didn't know that, but that's what don't judge me. That's the one I need the love from you. Yeah. So after dinner, a bunch of them went over to the bar, and they invited me, and I'm going, okay. Again, I've never tasted alcohol, and they said, "Hey, we're going to buy you this drink." Okay, don't want you not to like me. So for those old timers, they'll understand and appreciate the drink they bought me. Bartles and James wine cooler.
Yeah, the two old dudes sitting on the porch.
That is old school.
We called it cheerleader beer in high school.
And I remember drinking that, going, "Holy cow! This tastes like soda pop. This is not bad. That's not what I had." They kept buying, I kept drinking, and
I can imagine the bar guys. We sold how many Bartles and James last night?
That night, I don't remember all of that night, but I remember enough. That night, there was a piano bar player there, and they were just trying to get this Salt Lake Mormon guy in a bad spot, and I don't think there was terrible malice, but it was probably a fun experience for those guys to watch this.
Yeah.
So they're pushing me forward to this piano bar player. Her name was Tish, and I'll tell you why I remember that later. But I remember flirting with her and everything, and I do remember walking her to her car after it was all over, which is after midnight. That's all I can say. And the next memory I have is waking up in the hallway of the hotel where I was staying, looking at a husband and wife and a small child looking down at me, and I don't remember anything outside. About that time, the Bartles and James was saying, "Wait, we need a place to come up. This isn't comfortable. We are going to puke." And so I made it to my door, and I was sick for 3 days. But that was my first experience with alcohol. I never could drink just socially.
Yeah.
It was always a blackout.
All or nothing.
Yeah, it was all or nothing. And I tell you the piano bar side note story. I get home from that trip, and I'm home a couple of weeks, and I come home from work, and my wife's in the kitchen. She's got her leg. You guys on the radio can't see this, but her leg is just a bouncing. Arms are folded. This body language is screaming, not good. Yeah. This is not good. And I'm racking my brain like, I don't think I've done anything. What's she doing? And so, "Hi, Kel, how you doing?" And she goes, "You have anything you want to tell me?" Again, I'm racking my brain. I don't think so. Well, she slides across the table a manila envelope from the mailbox, says, "Can you explain this?" Well, sure, So I open it. I don't know what it is. Open it up, and there I open and pull out a 5x7 black and white of a scantily clad woman on a piano with the handwritten caption, "Thanks for the wonderful night. Love, Tish." That's how I remember her name.
That's hilarious.
Hey, we're listening to Christian Smith here on Project Recovery. It is a KSL podcast. Don't forget to follow us on episode 2 to find out more about Christian and cycles of change.
contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.